Controlled Chaos here. I have a special guest here in an interview. We have the goddess of Stars Reach, Meghann. And the reason I say goddess is she is the world builders of Stars Reach. I have three things that I consider a god for world builders. There's gods, there's game developers that build worlds like Meghann here, and then there's game masters or dungeon masters who build worlds. And I think that's just really cool that you get a chance to do that kind of thing. How are you doing today, Meghann?
Doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Glad to have you on. So I want to start off with some of the basic questions I ask all the developers, and then we'll move into your speciality on the team.
Sounds good.
What was your first job in the games industry?
First job in the games industry was it's hard to talk about because there's a lot of NDAs involved.
Yes.
But I worked for Machine Zone originally. I was going behind the scenes basically and testing for their older games. If you know them, they're all mobile games, but they were looking for ways to make them more interesting. So I was going across the board and basically playing all of them and taking notes and helping them kind of retool some of that stuff to be more fun.
Okay. And what are some of the other games you've worked on that you can actually bring up?
Unfortunately, everything I've worked on other than this is still under NDA.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it is one of those things where when you I've worked for this company now for 5 years, I want to say.
Oh, wow.
And so my job before this, I worked on 4 different games basically at the same time, and I can't talk about any of them.
I've been there because I was working on.
Yeah, please.
I was working as a game tester. That was my first jobs in the industry. I worked for Microsoft Game Studios, and they actually built a test facility near where I lived. So I applied for it, and all my friends were like, "Oh, you're never gonna get the job." And I got the job, and so they all started applying. But yeah, for like a year, I could not talk about what I did for a living until the first game came out with the credits and our names in it. I had to keep tight-lipped, and then there were other games I couldn't talk about until they released, like Halo Anniversary, Disney Pixar's Rush, and stuff like that. I had to keep my mouth shut. And, you know, that it's a good test to see, you know, who can keep their mouth shut, who can't, stuff like that. Because I went from being a basic tester to, okay, now we're putting you on secret projects. Now we're putting you on top secret projects, and you just sort of move up the line. I personally found it very fun working in the games industry. How are you enjoying working?
This position in particular is a lot of fun. I will say that it's kind of one of those dreams. You were talking about being like a dungeon master or a game master earlier. This is kind of a lot like that, and getting to do that for a job is very exciting.
Yeah, especially if you're a creative person that likes creating things and stuff like that. So, next question I have for you is, what kind of games do you like to play on your off time, not working?
Yeah, I'm actually more of like a cozy game player. I love no conflict. I love getting to grow things. Love getting to explore. Stardew Valley is always the easiest one to point out because everybody's played that. But I have the big range. I've got that, and then on the other side, I have like the Yakuza, like a Dragon series. Those are my 2 extremes, and somehow I make both of those work as my favorites.
Hey, that works, you know. And then you got things like Palia, that's the MMO cozy game, and you
Yeah,
know,
I've been enjoying that.
soon when Stars Reach, you know, it has a cozy function that you can play in a
Yeah.
way, you know, it's sort of in that middle.
Yeah, and we're always like developing more and more like systems and jobs and stuff that build up. Like there's stuff that is in now that wasn't always in that is starting to make things cozier. Like you've seen with I believe the guild is called Gunk, that they're working
Yes.
on doing a lot of planting, a lot of like like nature preserves almost. That kind of thing is what I find very interesting.
Yeah, seeing Gunk run around the world and create this artwork just out of bushes and stuff like that. You gotta be sitting back looking at that going, wow, they're using what I put in the world in a very unique way.
That's what I've been really enjoying seeing, is just how the different players are interacting and creating just unique experiences for themselves with the tools that they're given.
Yeah, you're one of the people that I blame for me enjoying mining. I hate mining and harvesting in every other MMO because it's just the same thing over again. Because of what you've done with the world and how it seeds the resources and actually having to dig in underground to hunt for the resources, I'm just loving. So I want to thank you for working on that and doing that.
Yeah.
Digging more into the world building, with the one of the recent updates adding in the Hesian changes. How much did that make you cry with it destroying the worlds you had built?
It was painful in a way. Like there was a lot of, we had if you've seen the world that has the giant mushrooms, for example,
yeah,
that was with the original adhesion values. Those all died with the new adhesion values, and those were one of the things I really enjoyed making. And so I had to get a lot more into testing like very specific like heights and how things are supported to try to bring back a lot of the architecture that we were seeing in like caves and caverns and stuff. But on the flip side, like it started to create organically a more fun experience for players for like exploring, because areas that I hadn't propped up with like extra pillars or extra columns and things started to create these like sinkholes that just opened up a new way to explore the world.
Well, also those pillars, they sort of create a labyrinth type experience in the caves. I got lost and in dead ends and stuff like that. So exploring the caves now with the pillars you add in to help support the cave system actually makes it more funner and interesting in exploring. It's not just this long tunnel you see.
Yeah.
So that's a really nice add-in. And with this latest Homes and Gardens update, how much work did you have to put into building of that?
You remind me what's in the Homes and Garden update so that I don't accidentally spoil something that I think is part of it, but I don't know if it is or not.
I sort of don't want to because I'd love some spoilers.
Oh, I am the worst person for that. I'm the one that's like, I don't know if I've ever said anything about that. I will be keeping my mouth shut.
Oh yeah. It's a great way to keep your job secure and not get yelled at by your bosses, because I've seen that happen. But the Homes and Gardens, it added in the thicket bushes, it added in the collision, and the trees not fully going away unless you cut them. Same with the bushes; they you now have to burn them, stuff like that.
Yes. Okay. That did not contain the thing I thought it did, so I am glad I asked. Yeah, so the Gardens and Thickets update. The thickets were actually something like I spoke with Art about originally. That's been on my request list for, I want to say, over a year, because I always thought that like we have a lot of really nice bushes. They're beautiful, but they're all very small. So having those big bushes that bar your path have to like make it more difficult for the player to get around and just kind of feel more natural, especially like I grew up in the South where there's tons and tons of forests that are just unkempt. I'm very used to running into the thicket problem.
Yeah, I'm in Oregon and we got a lot of forests here, and so we see the same thing. Now, with it, the word thicket to the bush, is there any plans in the future to maybe have it do damage when you run into thorns, things like that? Have you guys thought of having bushes?
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about different ways that flora could interact with the player in general, not just like damage types, but other types of interactions, like I want to say like make them sticky or make them do kind of a healing thing or like a glow. Like there's all types of different types of interactions that we've played with the ideas of and are still potentially in the future.
Well, it's like the latest plant that got added that has the island in. When you're in areas of the water, it has a healing effect.
Yes.
Hot springs.
I love that.
How hard was that for you to?
The hot springs actually came around like organically. That wasn't even something I did intentionally. I made like the hot springs areas.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually just a code change for one of the engineers where they're like, actually, it would be really cool if these things like water at a certain temperature would start to heal you so that people have more of an incentive to flock towards one area over another.
That's really cool. And that's the one thing that I gotta give Raph Costner praise for, is letting you developers go, you know what would be really cool is if we did this, and letting them experiment around. Because I remember being in a playtest and Rodney's like, you know what would be really cool is if we had these boxes that gave you a bunch of stuff to help advance a little bit quicker for when the Kickstarter happened. And lo and behold, it happened, allowing people to experience more of the game quicker during that Kickstarter phase.
Yeah, that won't obviously be in like long term, but like for people that are getting to do like quick demos and stuff like that, it is a lifesaver.
It was, and it got yanked out, but it was just nice having that there. Another question I have is, when you're building these worlds, is it a in-house or are you going through Unity and using Unity
so we're using a combination of things right now. We have our own in-house tool because in terms of procedural generation, a lot of procedural generation, because it uses math to generate height fields, which are like 2D images. That's about the extent of what can be made with them. We have an in-house tool that our team has developed that lets me do 3D effects as well, and that's how we're getting caves, which is just not something you'll see in any other tool.
Ah, okay. So it's a mix of different tools you're having to jump around with and things like that. Now,
yeah,
with you doing the world building, does this include that you're building out the space areas too?
Yes. I also am using the exact same tools to do those, although those are a different beast entirely and a lot trickier.
Okay. And are you guys planning on doing any POI, and that's points of interest into the world, such as like, I know that the makers are gonna have like sort of these areas to discover where you can get secrets and stuff like that. Are those actually going to be handcrafted or generated?
So we have a system in development for placing POIs, and it is going to be placed procedurally with the world the way the floor is placed, basically.
Okay. So are those all like crafted, or are they in pieces to where you can randomly generate them? So like City Heroes and Anarchy Online, when you go into a mission that's non-main story based, it randomly generates the dungeon for you, so everyone is different from one another. Is that how you guys are gonna go, or are they actually specifically built one?
It's going the first way. We're looking at basically POIs being generated, like pieces can be combined together, but the design for that hasn't been finalized yet. So there's still a lot in the air with what we're doing there.
Okay. And is
there a focus at the moment?
Yeah. Is there any plans for having POIs in space, sort of like derelict freighters, space stations, things like that?
Yeah, that's also included in the plan. It's one of those things that those are a little bit further out than some of our other updates, so they haven't been fleshed out as much, but it's always going to be the plan that we're going to have the POIs be in both sets of areas.
All right. And worlds. I know that you there's like a total of like 4 or 5 in there right now, seeing a desert world and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure that there are a multitude of more worlds you have planned that you're going to be working on, such as like an acid world, a Toxic World, Ice Worlds. How big is that list?
Uh, basically, I'm gonna be making these worlds forever because basically with procedural generation, I can roll the seeds on a set of things and get a completely different world with a very similar feel. Like a mountain world will always be mountains, but like the mountains could be different sizes, different shapes, different locations, different amounts. So right now, like for instance, I output 15 new worlds on Friday, and that's just the start basically.
Okay, excellent. And so with each space sector, on average, what's the range of worlds we could run into? So like in No Man's Sky, it can be anywhere from 1 to 9 worlds in a solar system. What are your guys' plans?
That one I cannot speak on yet, as it is one of those things that they're very excited to put together and surprise players with, basically.
Okay, excellent. You know, I like you said, there's some things you just can't answer, some things you want to
Yep.
leave as surprises and stuff like that, and that's totally understandable. With going back to worlds, with the tools that you have, are you able to do multi-biome worlds where there's like one part is forest, another part is desert, another part is rainforest, another part
Yeah,
is swamp?
absolutely. It's all based on factors of heating and humidity, basically. So if there's more water in this area, that changes the biome on my chart, basically. Think of it as heat versus humidity, and
Mhm.
each one has its own slot. So as you move up and down, the temperature range changes, and that could move you up or down in biomes in terms of the boxes.
Okay, excellent. Um, Creatures in the world. I know we're gonna be getting more varieties later on because this is pre-alpha
Correct.
and things like that. With that being said, right now they just sort of spawn in certain areas, and is that set once again just like how you have the biomes and the trees where they spawn in specific areas also, or is that just randomly done?
They're procedurally placed based on like think of their think of their habitat like their home as their starting point, and those are placed first, and then the creatures and stuff will interact with the world and spread from there. And so that can spread out depending on the type of creature, where they like to take a lot more territory on, and then they multiply to basically occupy that territory, or they could be the type that stay close in and populate around that area.
Okay. Uh, Continuing with creatures, nests. Star Wars Galaxies had nests where it would spawn the creatures out, and in order to get to stop, you'd have to destroy the thing. I know
Yep.
Raph Costner has said that they want to do something like that. How far off are we from seeing that? I know it's probably not going to happen before the 24/7.
Uh, Technically, that's how our creatures work now. The nests themselves are spawning the creatures,
Mm-hmm.
and they can be taken out by like removing the nest. The spreading themselves, like where they start to spread more and more hives and stuff, that's a little bit further out, but a little bit after 24/7 would be when I would expect that to be rolling in. There's a lot of things we're looking at in the meantime to make sure that the performance of the game stays really high.
Okay. And I know for 24/7, it's more stability and certain features and stuff like that that they want to get in there. I'm really excited for that because it's like I'm sort of getting bored with, oh, build a homestead, world
Yeah.
reset, build a homestead, which is what I liked about this newest update is it didn't do that. It just reset skills
Yes.
and reset the foliage because, well, they did the changes to foliage. It had to happen.
Yeah.
Which I like. But are there any plans between now and the 24/7 for more planets, or will we see more planets after 24/7?
There are definitely plans for more planets coming with uh either this next update or the one after. That has to do with the 15 I mentioned I was generating on Friday. So there was a lot of surprises to be seen there. I wouldn't expect you to have to see as much of the resets. We've been working behind the scenes on a lot of tools to make sure that those don't have to happen. So that should help that out as well.
And on Worlds, I know that we're playing with a 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer play area, and they want to try to go 4 kilometers by 4 kilometers. Is that something that's going to happen before or after 24/7?
That's after 24/7. We're working on getting the object count up right now to make sure that like players can place as many things as they want without having to feel like they're getting slowed down in any areas.
Okay. And the other thing I'm wanting to know is, I'm pretty sure you get a chance to play around the game because you have to test things like that. Do you ever get time just to play in the world for fun?
Yeah, so what I do normally is when I'm working on a new world, I will sit and play in that world for like say an hour or so to like see how it feels to try to progress from the beginning as a character in there, or come in with like a late game character and see how that feels as well. See if there's always places that I can explore and see what the experience is.
Okay, next question is how many times are you verbally in your own room yelling at Dave because a creature took you out or something like that?
Oh, I detest playing combat in any game whatsoever, so it's always me going, and I will be seeing you. I'll go the complete opposite direction. That is not my problem.
Yeah, I've done that. There's times where I've literally, seen the purple name tag and like, nope, I'm going the other way.
Absolutely, you nope right out of there.
Yeah. So when they added in the whole entire functionality of the level difficulties for mobs, how hard was that for you to implement into the world seed?
That actually doesn't get done on my side right now. So it used to be that I placed them based on a starting location and radiated them out from the starting location with difficulty.
Mm-hmm.
But now we have a system for creatures on the backside that handles that, so that I don't have to do an extra layer of generation and placements.
So they've literally put in tools to make your job easier. You can literally generate those worlds and stuff like.
Absolutely. If you could see my tool with how sprawling everything is inside of it, you would definitely be like, oh, thank goodness that's no longer in there, because it is. There's a lot of things that go into it, and it can make it look like one of those like cork boards with a million red strings going across.
Excellent. Now, with the whole entire system, I want to get an idea of what you're working with as a developer. Is this all for everything you're doing? Is it just sliders and like putting in numbers type of thing, and you're just dealing with the list? Is it node based where you're taking like a node that does one thing and connecting it to another and maybe messing with some sliders? How does that work on the back end for your job?
Yeah, so there's actually a combination of things. A lot of the terrain itself, I deal with. It's a node-based graph similar to like your GeoGens, your stuff like that, where you're basically taking a math formula, say like Perlin noise, and telling it like its amplitudes, its like seed values, stuff like that, and randomizing that, and moving it across and shaping it like by normalizing the height values and blurring it across or smearing it to create general shapes. That part's node based, and then everything else I have is like text lists and stuff for like naming the planet and deciding what its like biome, like its base biome is before it's changed by like elevation heights and different types of like lakes and rivers and things. And all of that goes into one node at the end, which outputs a file, and that gives us our worlds to explore.
So, with you bringing up the files for the worlds to explore, how big are these files concerning all the information? I know it's all data, so it's a lot smaller than, let's say, an image file or a 3D model file, which can be megabyte size. These are probably kilobyte sized files for easy communicating across the internet and stuff like that. Am I correct?
Let's look. I have one open right now, so I could say that compressed They're 13 megabytes, but altogether, it's not more than like 25.
Yeah, that's actually pretty small on today's standards, considering we're dealing with 60 gigabytes, 100 gigabyte games.
Yeah,
That's small. And I mean, back in the day when we had 56K modems and stuff like that, that would take forever get to a person. But now we have fiber optics and high speed internets. That's actually a very small package to send.
Yeah, it can get up there depending on the complexity and stuff, like megabytes, a gigabyte at worst. But it depends on the level of complexity and the size of the file, the size of the world itself that's within the file, because of how we save the data.
When building these worlds, what's your favorite thing to work on in the process?
In the process, my favorite thing generally to work on is like the basic terrain features, thinking of it like this is where they'll go to do this type of activity. This is where they'll go to do this type of activity. I like to think of it as like I'm making like the homesteading area where it's like this is really good for like you've got beautiful views, you've got areas that are a lot flatter, easier to like build on, or like this is the exploration area where all these monsters are going to be hiding in these coves and coming out to get you, stuff like that. Just imagine what the player is going to be doing with each section is just the part I enjoy the most.
Now, with you saying imagining what each player is doing with each, what has surprised you the most that players have done in an area that you didn't expect them?
So far, I haven't seen anything too crazy. I will say, though, that cutting down the mushrooms when we used to have them on Pyromyces, that made me sad. That made me so sad. You know how excited I was? I was like, oh my gosh, we have these awesome, cool mushrooms. People will build on top of them. They're like, no, they just cut them down. I was like, oh, okay then. Never mind.
I'll go in my little corner and cry.
Pretty much, I was like, I'm sure I'm sure they'll have fun anyways with their piles of just dirt.
Yeah.
Made me so sad.
Hey, we're testers. Our job is to make games.
Yep, that is the thing. But I was just like, it's just gonna be so fun. They can build so many fun things. Nope. Yeah. Absolutely not.
I mean, I went two directions. I saw them. I'm like, okay, that's cool. That took some work. There's two things I want to do on it. I want to build on top of it, and I want to cut one down and see what happens.
Yeah, that's the duality of it, because it is really, really hard to get that type of shape in procedural generation. It's why you don't see that very often.
Yeah.
Especially made out of terrain. Like, there's a lot that goes into it, and it's something that we can only do with our tools because we have so much like robust like sculpting for 3D. But it immediately comes down, and I was like, yeah, I should have expected that. But I was like, I put so much work into it that I was like, okay, this is gonna be so fun.
How long did it actually take you to create those, by the way?
The first time you figure out how to make them, that's what takes the most amount of time. Mm-hmm. I would say I spent probably a full day, like 8 hours, 9 hours on making those mushrooms. Because it's really, really tedious work where you're thinking about like a giant hill.
Yeah.
And then you have to calculate the exact inverse of it. So you're scooping out underneath it. But then also trying to get a stem in the center of it. So all of the math for that was such a pain.
Now,
and then I was like, oh, and it's gone in a second.
Yeah. Now, with the adhesions, like you said, they've disappeared. Do you plan on figuring out a way to bring them back?
I've been experimenting with different types of resources to make something similar, but of that scale and size, it's not going to be doable going forward unless there's a new type of rock that we invent that is very, very stable.
That or low gravity planets.
That too, but that is one of those things that is down the line.
Yeah,
it's on the list of things to do.
Because
it's not the highest prioritization.
Yeah, I can see you going crazy with the different gravities and like, oh, we got a really low gravity planet. We can have floating rocks and
yes,
and all
I
this
wanted to so badly.
Yeah, it's like when No Man's Sky came out with the floating island planets. first thing I went out and did is I built one of those floating islands.
Yeah,
And
actually, funnily enough, Pyromyces used to have floating islands on it before it got out to. We sent it out to players the first time. But I was like, okay, we already have a lot going on. We'll save it for the next one.
yeah.
Then adhesion changes came, and I had to rethink how those were working.
How big is your list for ideas of planets, and what percentage have you already sort of gotten done?
I have an infinite list that I'm always adding to. The more I see like interesting ideas for like I'll look at through photography from around the world, like looking at the weirdest things you can find on planet Earth. I love to collect photography for that and keep a list going forward. And I'd say I've done maybe 1% of the things off of my list so far.
Yeah, so yeah, and you also mentioned that you've been there for 5 years, so you've been there
Yeah,
since almost the beginning. How
yeah,
has it
4 years,
evolved?
something like that.
How has it evolved tool-wise for doing your job? I'm pretty sure it's gotten a heck of a lot simpler from the beginning day.
Our tooling used to take a long time for it to be able to output worlds. Think if I wanted to put out one world, it would take me 4 hours to just process things, even if they were already built. We've gotten it down to where it's maybe 20 minutes, which has been a huge, huge time save for me. Think about like playtesting a world that you're trying to work on. It's like, oh, just 4 hours and then you can see if it looks good. 20
Yeah.
minutes has been just an absolute game changer.
Yeah, I know how that is because I was actually on the Xbox One test team just before the Xbox One was going to launch. So I was working on launch titles, and the test tools that they had in there, some of them were actually in DOS prompt.
Yep.
And I remember the test lead running out of her office going, "Don't touch those. We don't know how to test those." I'm like, "What do you mean you don't know how to test these? It's simple. I did a bunch of tests in forever." And it's just like, "Wait, you know DOS prompt?" I'm like, "Yeah, I grew up with the Commodore 64. Remember, I'm not in my 20s. I'm in my 30s. I grew up in Commodore 64 and Apple II era. I know this stuff." And she's like, "Can you give us a class on how to do this?" I'm like,
Yeah.
"Yeah." So
And it's not a common thing that comes up.
yeah, exactly. And um with all of that, you have one world in mind that's like your dream world to build.
Yeah, I've always if you know the Giant's Causeway,
Mhm.
basically the hexagonal like rock formations that like cliffs and like that's how the beaches form too, is just these giant natural geometric pillars moving around.
Mhm.
I want to be able to make something like that without it getting like too rounded out or something like that, because I think that is one of the most unique things I've ever seen, is just how the caves and stuff form in that area where it looks like they have just removed pieces of the geometric shapes and it's like up and down. It looks very video gamey, but it is bizarrely one of those things that like this is real life.
Yeah. With this being a sci-fi game, though, you can go outside of real life and
Absolutely.
create something completely different that's never been seen before. So,
Yeah.
like, No Man's Sky has these worlds where everything's hexagons
Yeah.
and stuff like that. Are there any plans for you guys doing worlds sort of like that, where it's just something we've never ever seen before or imagined?
Yeah. So a lot of the times when I'm working on things, what I think of is that when these planets were being terraformed originally for our players to explore by like the NPCs and stuff, it's they had an idea of what Earth was.
Mm.
They saw it, and they always get something slightly wrong. That's how I think of like the Pyromyces, for instance, with the mushroom worlds. They're like, there's giant mushrooms in this media form, right? So that must be something that occurs on Earth. So they terraform these giant mushrooms to like make people feel more at home. But like, it's always something that's just slightly wrong and gives you more of that sci-fi feeling.
Yeah. Um, with that uh being said, what's the one feature that you're looking forward to getting put into the game?
supporting Sky Islands is my thing that I want more than anything right now, specifically because I think there's so much we could do with it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of other things as well. More of the like expanding on animal taming, for example. That's one of the things I'm really looking forward to as well, because I think that will be a lot of fun for people to make friends of some of our creatures rather than doing a murder upon them.
Yeah.
I love those the owl deer. I adore those things so much, and I refuse to hurt them in any way. And I just want them to be my friend and be able to just go and explore with them and have them interact with the environment through the gameplay and be able to do a little bit more, you know?
Hey, I've taken a lot of deers, but in my defense, they attacked first.
Which I think is crazy.
Yeah.
I'm always like, no, but it's a cute little guy. He doesn't want to do any damage.
Yeah. I mean that's the fun thing about the game. I remember when Dave put in the vicious bunny rabbits. So the jackalopes turn into the vicious bunny rabbits. My first thought was the bunny rabbits are getting their revenge from every player taking them out.
Oh man, you are lucky you did not see the original concept art for those scary ones. The evil ones had the scariest art I've ever seen in my entire life. It was nightmare fuel.
Oh.
Think like 500 eyes from every direction. It was horrible.
That would have been cool to see. And you never know, it could come back as a boss mob or something like that later in the future. I mean,
yeah, never say never.
Exactly. You know, and that's what I'm liking about the game is how open-minded it is. I mean, you guys have a focus of what you guys are going to do with exploration, player economy, and stuff like that. And I'm really enjoying it. And it's changed the way I actually play games and what I enjoy. Because when I came in, I had a vision of what I wanted my character to do. I wanted to do what I did in Star Wars Galaxies. I wanted to be a bounty hunter that also was a creature handler.
Yeah.
And that's been thrown out of the water. It's still there. But on the side, he's going to be a miner and just a bunch of other things that I just normally don't do.
And I like that a lot about the game.
Yeah, it makes it really fun and interesting. What's the one thing that you enjoy doing the most in the game?
What I enjoy most right now is probably the minings, weirdly enough. Like I used to really like you said, I used to not really enjoy mining that much in games. I'm always like, cool, there's something more beautiful outside. Like I want to see the stars, I want to see the flowers, I want to see things like that. But I've found a lot of fun with trying to find ways to dig through and not like collapse tunnels down on myself. I feel like it's like very like cathartic almost.
It is, and that's the one thing I'm waiting for is the point of interest being buried underground to find hidden cave systems with creatures in it, the makers' laboratories and stuff like that. Is there? I know that there's those two planned because they've been talked about. Are there any others that are going to be underground, sort of hidden secrets that we can run across besides the resources, the hidden caves, and the secret lab?
Yeah, we've had a lot of plans for a while for like different kinds of flora and stuff that you have to only find underground that to go into the sticker book collection, stuff like that. The POIs. I've also always had like the idea in mind that I want to set it up so that there's a lot of types of exploration you can do in caves rather than just have a cave, have like a waterfall that's like naturally flowing through and it's spawning like a certain type of mineral or gem that only can be found in this underwater area, like under a waterfall, like something that encourages exploration more and rewards players for being like adventurous and curious.
Sure, make me fall in love with mining even more. I see how you are.
Yeah, what can I say? The more I find something fun, the more ideas I have for it, for expanding on it and making it even more fun for everybody else.
So with I another thing I noticed is that the storms that happen, like the giant asteroids
Yeah.
falling and the hot hail and stuff like that, I noticed that those are localized in certain areas. How much is there, like a certain range that you set them in so that they only happen in a certain radius? Is that locked in really tight, or is that got wide boundaries to where it could happen in really small areas and then the next time like almost half of the zone? How does that work?
Yeah, that is a thing that we've been looking at. Sorry, my cat is absolutely just losing his mind right now. It is so hot outside, and I have forbidden him from having his window open. He's very upset about it. He's
Hey,
letting me know.
it's actually been fun watching the cat roam around as you're talking. I
Hmm.
like how you actually have stuff on the wall for him to climb up on and play around with. It's just been fun. I haven't been focusing on you. I've been focusing on the cat in the background as we've been talking.
Yes, that is Keo. He is basically the owner of this room. I'm just borrowing a corner of it for my office because he's a troublemaker if he doesn't get to have fun. Hence the entire playground set up.
So with that said, it that's got to be the hardest part of your job. Not actually doing the work.
Hmm.
Him letting you do the work, because him going, no, it's playtime. It's pay attention to me time. You're like,
Oh
but
yeah.
I gotta get this done.
Oh yeah. He's something else. Like this is his box. It sits next to my desk because if it doesn't, I will be yelled at. He has learned how to turn my computer off. So
Oh.
if he's really, really mad, he will turn it off and I have to get everything set back up. So it's become, how do you manage Keo today?
Well, the question then is how many requests have you put into the developers making the tools to do auto saves a lot quicker for when that
Yep.
happens?
There is actually a feature in there specifically because this has happened, where if my tools crash or close without me being able to save, it just holds onto a temporary file. It's like, we feel like you might want this.
Yeah. Before that, it's like, okay, I've done 5 hours of work, and then your cat just like hit the button, and it's like, no.
Yep. He will do that. Come here, Kiki. Whoa, Kiki. Crazy boy.
But
He's throwing himself.
yeah, it makes the job very interesting. So,
Yes.
and so knowing that you're a cat lover, well, you have a cat, I'm pretty
Mhm.
sure you're at odds with people who are taking out the prowlers and stuff like.
Oh, I'm always that way with animals. Every animal in every game, I'm like, but do I really have to hurt it? I don't really want to. Can't we be friends? I'll just let it kill me. It's fine. Just let it go. Let it go.
Even things like the ball hogs and like the the nightmare looking one concept art for the rabid
Yeah,
bunnies.
those I have less of a hard time with. I'm like, well, you're not really furry. You have too many eyes. I'm putting you out of your misery, to be honest. You've got 500 eyes. That can't be good for a rabbit. You're very uncomfortable.
No legs for the ball hogs.
Yeah, they're just bouncing around. They get themselves trapped in a cave in. I'm like, well, this is probably nicer for me to get rid of you. Sorry, my guy.
Well, hey, at least you get the heads up when they make changes to the mobs, unlike us testers where Dave keeps completely silent on the changes he made. And the only reason we know he made the change is when someone mentions it, we hear Dave just laugh.
Oh, he does that to us too.
Oh, really?
Oh, 100%. I'll just log. I'll be logging in and like somebody will be like, "Why am I on fire? What's happening?" And Dave is just laughing in the background. Like, "Oh yeah, I gave it a fire skill."
Oh,
Like,
okay. What you need to do,
fixed.
Dave sounds like a prankster.
That is 100% true.
You need to find a way to prank him back.
I'm just, my personality does not work well with prank.
Oh.
I named that the wrong thing. Isn't that very funny? I can't, like, I don't have it in me to be like vicious, and I want to, but like it's not. That doesn't come naturally to me.
That's where you'll work on a group, team up on them.
Exactly.
Hopefully Dave doesn't watch these interviews. I'll get a message
He's
probably
not
from
gonna
him.
watch this.
Well, you know, he is the director of the whole entire thing. Very busy person, you know.
Yeah.
I'm sure all of you developers are really busy with a bunch of different things, which is that's the other thing I want to compliment you guys on is the turnaround on updates.
Yeah,
In
that's
pre-alpha, it's normally 3 months to 6 months, you know, wait time on updates. You guys are like bi-weekly to monthly updates. That was a complete shock. So when I get comments from people, oh, this is a scam, I immediately respond back with no. Main reason, they're constantly updating and adding to it. If it was a scam, they wouldn't be putting more work in. They'd be showing fake work.
Yeah, there's always new things to explore, and it's something our team takes pride on is getting stuff in front of the players so that they have something to interact with, something new to play with, something to see that like the faith they have in us is going to be well rewarded.
I like hearing that, but the question I just thought of is I know you have this creative side of, hey, I want to do this because it would look cool. You ever get that spark of sort of evilness in you? I want to do this because it would just drive the player nuts and get that Dave sort of feel of that makes you laugh.
No, it's more of I put something in and I go, oh, the players are about to troll me so hard with this, aren't they? It's the mushroom problem all over again. I think of this thing where I'm like really excited. I'm like, okay, they're gonna have so much fun. I think this is gonna like let them do like ski slopes or this or that. And I show up and watch the playtest, and they cut the mountain in half and they turned it into like a pit. And I'm like, how? How did you do that? I don't understand where that came from.
Well, we're there, especially like with the adhesion test. Our job was to destroy things. Our job is to modify the world to try and get the world to crash.
I have no complaints. My thing is I'm always like, I bet I can get ahead of them this time. Nope, never happened. But I do get excited trying. I'm like, but I shored it up this way, and maybe this won't happen. Yeah, and then it's broken in some horrible new way that I'm like, that's impressive. I don't know how they've done it, but that's impressive.
So with that, how often are you working and then watching when the playtests are up, someone streaming the game?
I try to get a good grasp of any kind of footage that's out there for the game, like at least skim through it, make sure that I'm seeing like, oh, they enjoyed this or didn't enjoy that, or they didn't interact with this part of the world, but they interacted with this part of the world. I've been keeping an eye out just to make sure that like we're always giving the players something new. And if I have any ideas based on how they're playing or they mention something, I'm like, great. They want to see more ways to like launch themselves into the void. I got that. I have an idea for how to make this work.
That's really cool. I like the fact that you're seeing how we're interacting with the world. You're seeing that, oh, they're enjoying this. They're not enjoying that. So let's change that thing that they're not enjoying. Let's experiment over here. See if we can get them to create something they enjoy. What about the ski jump that was built in the world? Did you check that out?
I have seen that. And that's something that I've been looking at for a bit with some of the adhesion changes that have come in, some stuff with like sliding and some of the other changes we're looking at for some of the tools to see how we can maximize the fun of those type of things and see if we can't encourage more innovative ways of movement that reward the player with like, wow, you used this naturally flowing hill to like launch over here. Well, now there's this rare resource that you kind of landed at over here because you happened to launch and you landed over here. You're like, whoa, that's something to reward that type of exploration.
That's really nice. And I like the fact that you're taking inspirations from what players are doing and it's giving you ideas. You know, that can be
Yeah.
a blessing and a curse. It could be, oh, that's really cool, but then you're like, oh, that means more work.
I never mind the work so much. I really enjoy what I do, and trying to find new ways to make new types of interactions is always something I've been interested in, especially with like being as big a topography nerd as I am.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always like, oh, I have the perfect idea for this. Like there's a spotted lake, for example, in the world where like different minerals naturally form in different like deposits in different little sections of water that are perfect circles. I'm always excited, like, oh, and then they're gonna break down this wall, but now there's this thing underneath that's gonna get them.
Oh, I'm waiting for cool stuff like that. I haven't ran into it. And
You'll be seeing some of that stuff more soon.
Yeah, because that's one of the things I'm looking forward to in doing the digging and mining is something to pop out and jump scare me. I'm one of those people that I actually enjoyed being scared in that way and surprised in different ways.
Yeah, we've been looking a lot. So when the gases update comes through, when we have the ability to place more gases in the world, I've already been looking at setting up caves with like quote unquote stale air, like that is, hey, this is a horribly poisonous air that you broke a pocket open into and now it's rushing down the tunnel that you've made. Hope you made a way to escape because that is a danger.
Another question I have for you is, since we already have this one sector of space with these 4 or 5 planets, have you yet started work on another sector of space that we have to jump to?
We have looked at another sector of space. We're waiting right now on some of the changes to how we're doing gravity. Because right now the way the gravity works is centralized, as you've probably noticed, like on the asteroids.
Yeah.
And so that means with how they're set up currently, I have to make sort of regular shapes where they can't have too much craziness going on. So once the gravity changes go in, then I can start expanding in and making more bizarre things for people to find in space. And that's going to be the next sector that I work on.
Okay, excellent. And speaking of space and bizarre things, did you see the time where players connected the giant asteroids with these walkable bridges?
Yes, that was so cool. I loved that. It reminded me of like almost like a helix structure.
Yeah, it was awesome to see because it's like, oh, cool. Now I want to go and get this iron or different resource and I need to go to a new asteroid. I can run over to it instead of just flying over to it.
Yeah, it works out really well, especially with the older version of the asteroids with that are almost like the geode centers, where it's all the layers that go down into the different patterns. I bet that ended up looking really neat with a lot of the harvesting because I hadn't seen it when it was probably picked clean for the most part, but I had seen it when they had first set that up.
Yeah, and that's really interesting. Are we going to be seeing, right now I'm seeing like 2 different types of asteroids. We're seeing the really big ones and the really small ones. Are we going to have more variety in asteroids?
Absolutely. As soon as I get those gravity changes come in for me to work with, we're going to have a huge variety. Right now it's like asteroid belts and asteroids that are explorable, but there's going to be huge ranges in size and a lot of different shapes rather than just the round. Like I'm looking at like twisted helixes, stuff like that.
Oh, that's going to be interesting and fun to play around in. I mean, I already like them as is because something I wanted to do in No Man's Sky was get out and walk around on the asteroids. It's something that they originally wanted to do, but for some reason they had to take out. So seeing that you guys were able to actually accomplish it and that you're now even in pre-alpha working on improving it is a really cool idea and stuff like that. Now, I'm pretty sure you're going to be playing when the game goes live. what is the professions or skills that you're going to predominantly focus on?
Yeah, I've actually talked about this a little bit because I've been really excited about the idea of making like I said, a nature preserve where I
Mhm.
can transplant a bunch of types of like trees and bushes, and then give a bunch of different creatures like a natural habitat for them to roam around. I've been really excited by the idea of that.
So basically, if you were to join a guild, it'd probably be gunk.
Yeah, they have a lot of the same ideas I do, I found.
Hey, good nature creative minds think alike, and
Absolutely.
so that's really nice
Yeah.
and fun. Now we have the ability to freeze things and put things on fires in the world. Are there going to be any other environmental ways that will be able to affect the worlds in the futures? Anything on the plans? Not
Oh,
that they're going to happen soon, but just
yeah,
are on the
absolutely.
drawing board.
Yeah, absolutely. If you even think about just like the basics of water and stuff, like rewriting water, like changing parts of like the biomes and what like thrives somewhere, water mixing in with like dirt and making it harder to cross areas by turning it into mud, being able to like make skating ponds, like bridge across areas and slide across. And then with gases being introduced, you'll have even more ways to interact with things. Think like, I don't know if you've seen there was a bug at one point where when you heated water, when it went straight to gas and it would make explosions.
Yeah.
Stuff like that is going to be reintroduced like with gases and stuff so that you have these different types of like chemical and like matter state interactions that cause interesting ways to play.
That's gonna be interesting. Um, the next question is: are we gonna have hazardous worlds like toxic worlds and stuff like that, like in No Man's Sky, where there's environmental hazards that you have to worry about?
Oh, absolutely. Everything is tame right now, but
Yeah.
it's not going to stay that way. Things are stable for now, and as we explore and find more and more worlds with the players, I'm sure they're going to find things that are worrisome in terms of the atmosphere, the types of hazards that are like extreme temperatures. It's going to be things that you'll have to prepare for.
And are you able to? I'm pretty sure because of the system, you're able to contain those in specific areas. Am I correct?
Uh, I can contain some things in specific areas. Heat, for example, would be something I can't contain
Hmm.
unless I affect directly the elevation. But even then, there's not a huge range of temperatures I can affect that way. But hydrology, gases, stuff like that, those are things that I have a little bit more control over and can make more like pockets of danger rather than an entire environment of danger.
So it could be literally that we're tunneling and digging for resources underground, and all of a sudden you hit a cave area that has toxic gas or radiation or whatever. That's
Absolutely.
even more of a hazard, and that just adds yet another layer of fun and stuff like that. I honestly I think that mining is probably going to end up being the number one thing players go to. 'Cause
Yeah, I
I don't see it in other games. I mean, yeah, we have it in Minecraft and that stuff falls, but you don't run into the environmental hazards as much as what you guys are sort of trying to aim.
Yeah, we're looking to add even more ways for the players to have to prepare for what they're doing. Because as you mentioned, like mining is so much fun, but it's even more fun when you have to like think about what you're preparing for. Am I like it's almost like what you would do if you were actually going like spelunking. Do I need to bring like ways to shore up the walls? Do I need to bring like a gas mask? What do I need to protect myself from this? Is there potentially going to be lava because of the environment on this planet that could drip onto my head?
Yeah, I actually had that. In fact, one of the first videos I did, I think it was within the top five first videos I did, was the dangers of mining in Stars
Mhm.
Reach and showing that you can bury yourself alive and stuff like
Mhm.
that. And as you guys add more stuff, I'm going to have to update and do newer videos for that. And I find that
Absolutely.
really fun.
But there's so much that's coming with gases, especially, are the things that are going to be very good, like backdrafts. Stuff like that is going to be very, very interesting for players to find and try to navigate safely.
Okay, excellent. So the last question I have is,
Yeah.
do you have any kind of leak of upcoming stuff that you're working on that you could share with us?
I technically have, actually. I did mention that I have those 15 worlds that I put out on Friday. The next couple of updates comes out. I think you'll see something very interesting with the places that you can explore.
I love that tease there. Well, Meghann, I want to thank you for your time in doing this. I think we got a lot of great information out of this interview. Have a great day.
Thank you.